Elon Musk explained why Putin is in danger and how he has to fix this new problem. Or who knows what will happen, because with the latest developments, Putin is getting weak. In the latest Twitter podcast, Musk said, "Here's the truth. Putin is in serious trouble. They are coming for him within Russia, and it's big." According to Musk, Putin made a big mistake within Russia, and now he is facing tough consequences for it. This is a very complicated situation, so let's start from the beginning. So, on February 20th, 2024, in an interview on X Space, Elon Musk said USA needs to stop the fighting in the Russia-Ukraine war and use the money for American building projects instead. Responding to what many people said on a topic started by venture capital founder David Sachs on X, Musk mentioned that a peace agreement should have been made a year ago. He also said that it looks like Russia is likely to win the war with Ukraine. Replying to someone on X who said, "It's time to stop fighting and start peace talks between Ukraine and Russia. Ukraine has already lost this war, and nothing can change that." Musk agreed and said, "Yes, it's only about how many people will die before we accept this truth. A peace deal should have been made a year ago. Since then, thousands of young men have died for no reason, and Ukraine's situation gets worse every day. And that's why, according to Musk, USA needs to stop financing Ukraine." And on February 12th, 2024, Elon Musk talked about how some people wrongly think he supports Vladimir Putin. He explained that SpaceX-owned Starlink has been instrumental for the Ukrainian military and hurt Russia big by enabling drones to drop bombs on Russian forward positions. This satellite network has ensured continuous and reliable communication on the battlefield, despite Russia's attempts to disrupt Ukrainian communications, including a significant cyber attack on another satellite provider just before the invasion. Musk thinks it's silly for anyone to believe he supports Putin because his companies have really helped Ukraine. As Musk said, beyond military use, Starlink has helped people in besieged cities near the Russian border to stay connected with the outside world. It has allowed Ukrainians to share first-hand accounts of the conflict, directly impacting global perception and support for Ukraine. But people still accuse me of being a Putin supporter. We should also mention that during a meeting in Brussels, the EU's top person commented on how dangerous Putin is, and that the EU and its countries are ready to help Ukraine protect itself over a long period. They mentioned in a summary of the meeting that they will quickly think about how to do this. Josep Borrell, who is in charge of the EU's foreign policies, mentioned that this support could continue what the EU is already doing, like the European Peace Facility Fund, which has paid for a lot of weapons for Ukraine and a training program for Ukrainian soldiers. Borrell said to journalists that the EU's military help for Ukraine is going to be for the long term and suggested creating a Ukrainian defense fund, similar to the peace facility. But what is going on inside the Russia that creates a dangerous situation for Putin? Well, Putin has one big problem within Russia that he cannot deal with. When Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022, many thought that soldiers' moms would protest against the war and ask for their sons back, like they did during the Chechnya War in the 1990s. However, these moms have become almost invisible due to strict rules against war opposition. Now, it's the soldiers' wives who are openly criticizing how the government is dealing with the war in Ukraine. The reason we're hearing more from wives than mothers is because the soldiers are not young draftees, but older married men in their 30s, 40s, and even 50s. These men were called to serve by Putin in September 2022 as part of the reserves and are on indefinite duty in Ukraine. They are men who had already done their military service before, up to the age of about 60. In Russia, there's a long history of not taking women in military families seriously when they try to speak up or protest. Back in 1917, women related to soldiers played a big role in the protests that ended the monarchy and helped start the Bolshevik Revolution. However, leaders at the time, both before and after the revolution, didn't take these women seriously. They thought these women were uneducated because they talked about wanting better lives for their families instead of using political terms. These women's efforts are often left out of the history books about the 1917 revolutions. It's also key to remember that the protests by soldiers' wives today are just a small part of the larger group of wives and mothers of Russian soldiers in Ukraine. And with that, even today, people in Russia keep protesting, even though they risk getting arrested and hurt by the police. They keep showing their dislike for the government and war by putting up messages in public places. Since 2020, there has been ongoing support for Sergei Fergal, a governor who was put in jail, with people regularly protesting. After the election, decisions that made people's lives harder, like higher taxes and more efforts to overpower Ukraine, might make people question if the government really has complete control over the country and its citizens. And in this situation, we shouldn't ignore how important and political the actions of these soldiers' wives are. By asking for the end of the call-up to the army, these women are going against Putin's plan to keep fighting until he gets what he wants. These women are also using their basic right to question and challenge their government's actions. And these actions are transformed into massive protests and growing inner opposition that Putin has, which is for now not as loud as everyone wants it to be, but it is massive. And that's why the situation for Putin is very dangerous in Russia, especially since the Russian army's embarrassing losses in Ukraine that made way for Wagner Group and other non-traditional military forces, like those loyal to Chechen leader Ramzan Kadyrov, to make advances on the battlefield. The fight for the city of Bakhmut in eastern Ukraine, led by Wagner mercenaries, showed the group as the only force capable of winning military battles. Prigozhin's successful private military company helped him become more influential in the war and challenged the Ministry of Defense, the main body in charge of the war. He openly criticized Russian military leaders, including Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu and Chief of Staff Valery Gerasimov, in his video messages. In response, the Defense Ministry tried to get control over Wagner, which eventually caused a rebellion in June. Prigozhin's death has ended this particular power struggle that grew over the last year. However, it won't fix the bigger issues facing Putin within Russia, which are being made worse by the war and the informal networks of power. And it's interesting to point out that on 11th of January 2024, in an interview, Putin complimented Elon Musk, calling him a remarkable person and a successful business leader. He especially noted Musk's work with SpaceX, making it a key company in space travel. Putin's praise followed Musk revealing that he said no to Ukraine's request to use his Starlink satellites over Crimea to help attack Russia's navy, fearing it would make him part of a big act of war. While speaking at an economic event in Russia, Putin didn't talk about the Starlink issue, but highlighted Musk's achievements in space and praised him as a skilled and energetic businessman, also mentioning the support Musk gets from the US government. Also, it was surprising that on September 12, 2023, Putin had very positive things to say about Musk. Putin said, "Elon Musk is undoubtedly an outstanding person. It must be admitted. I think the whole world admits it. He is an active, talented businessman, has a company which digs tunnels under the ground. He's also launching satellites into space to provide fast internet everywhere. Fascinating."